Welcome to the Optimal Bio podcast. At Optimal Bio, we don't just balance your hormones, we balance your whole body. Our conversations range from nutrition to medicine with an emphasis on wellness tips to support your health journey. If you like what you hear, find us on the web at optimalbio.com and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Optimal Bio's Wellness Podcast. Today, we are honored to have Deborah Manke with us. She is one of our providers down in our Mount Pleasant, South Carolina office that's recently been open. I believe we opened back in September of 22. And we're grateful to have her on today to hopefully get to know her a little bit better. So, Deborah, how are you today?
Thank you. I'm so well. Thank you so much for having me. This is a real privilege to be a part of Optimal Bio.
I'm glad you can make it. And I know you're up in the Cary office right now doing some training. So have you been to Cary before, and what are your thoughts?
Yes, I did my initial training up here. As most people know, this is the flagship office, which a lot goes on here. It's very busy. It's perfect for training. And, just being a part of the core crew and learning from them is really initiates you into Optimal Bio.
Well, the good news about being part of Optimal Bio is that you can start and grow an office practice area down in Mount Pleasant, and you're kind of at a video distance from Dr. Brandon, but now that you're up here, you get to train with him all day long. So how's that going?
That is the key. There's so much to learn from him for sure. And just, as a nurse practitioner, as a provider, you want that synergy and to really have his knowledge and wealth of experience just to infuse in you as a subset to him. So yeah, it's a real privilege to actually be in Cary again.
Well, good stuff. Well, you don't sound like you're from South Carolina, so why don't you give the listeners a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I am a very seasoned nurse at 38 years. And 24 of that, when I started my nursing journey, was in critical care. I thought that if I took care of the worst case scenario, everything else would be easy. So I did ICU, CCU, emergency room, and recovery room. And really the impetus for me to go back to school and become a nurse practitioner for the last 14 years to do functional medicine, holistic nursing, and also I'm an acupuncture detoxification specialist. The impetus was I was working in ER for so many years that it was a revolving door of chronically ill patients. Like, for example, abdominal pain. I'd see the same people over and over weekly, and they'd get CAT scanned and nothing really changed. And with the healthcare deficit climbing, I just thought, this is the time for me to go back to school to see how I can contribute and what I could do. So at that time, I was living in Connecticut. I'm actually a Midwest girl, grown up and raised. But I was living in Connecticut, and lo and behold, New York University offered the only holistic nurse practitioner program in the country. And it was a dual degree with adult primary care. So I came out as double certified. And that experience working in Manhattan, downtown New York, and just being exposed to, like Dr. Brannon, being exposed to practices that are way ahead of their time, that with just extraordinary doctors that are doing really good medicine and explaining why and showing the data was just incredible. So I took advantage of a lot of opportunities in that way, like I usually do, and just got to work with extraordinary practices, actually like at the Mount Sinai Medical Center, contributing to research studies on biofeedback and essential oils. And Donna Karen, the fashion designer, did a big study in New York City with cancer. And it just, it was very empowering to not only have that primary care background, but holistic and fuse that. So again, it's really wonderful to be here, to be practicing in an extraordinary practice with a physician that, he's ahead of his time and doing really good data driven results for our patients.
So was there a moment or was there something that took place that changed your path from this acute care, from this traditional medicine, and to go back to NYU and to get this dual degree and put you on a different path?
Well, yeah. So the impetus in the ER was really like, for me, I'm very gut health and hormone health and inflammatory health related. I think like that's the cornerstone of how I view wellness. And the thing is when I, was a regular emergency room RN and I kept seeing this revolving door, because you never turn patients away, but these people would come in and they would just be CAT scanned over and over. So they're getting this excessive radiation. They're not finding anything, but they're still coming in with the same complaints. Nobody's getting to the root cause. Nobody's fixing anything. Nobody's looking at the whole picture. So that was really the impetus for me to go back for my advanced degree. And, with it being holistic nurse practitioner, I got the opportunities to work with just fantastic practices that really looked out of the box, but at the whole person. And again, like Optimal Bio, really balancing hormones is the key, not only to how you feel right now, it's so much about your long-term health, longevity. And boy, the data's showing that. And so we've come a long way. And, some of my heroes are these physicians and these providers that are doing this research to show these health benefits. Again, you feel good now, but you don't realize how you're taking your health long-term into a totally different direction.
I mean, it must have been tough for you too to, be in that type of career for 24 plus years. You're on the front lines, right? You're not, sure there's some great stories and some positive outcomes, but you're also, every day you're high stress and there's negative outcomes as well. From a stress standpoint, how did you deal with that? How'd you cope with that?
Thank you for saying that. For people that still work ER and trauma, it is a lot. And I don't know so much that you become numb to it, but you have to find coping mechanisms and ways to keep yourself well. And of course, we hear a lot about meditation. We hear a lot about working out, about getting outside, about getting away from your job and making sure you have hobbies, being connected at church, and just making sure that you're not wrapped up in just your work life and your work friends, and making sure that you are doing self-care. And so I think really, for me, not only being a holistic and functional medicine board certified nurse practitioner, I want to live it. I want to be that role model because I feel good. How can I tell somebody, hey, what you eat is directly affecting your health. And, if you pray or not and have a source of a higher power, if you meditate and have that time to yourself to just clear your mind, if I'm telling people to do that and can't do it myself, then I'm not a good role model, but it's not as clearly conveyed as if people say, hey, are you doing this? And it's like, yes, I feel that this works, and I can show you data that supports it as well. So those things really helped me cope with the stress and the anxiety of working in kind of a high profile, high intense situation in an emergency room, whether you were resuscitating a baby or it was an opioid overdose. But there comes a time that you realize that maybe you need a change. Or maybe you get frustrated. And that was my impetus for going back to school. It's like, how could these people keep coming in and getting the same news and our healthcare deficit climbing? Like, what can I do to contribute? I've got to go back to school. I have to find out how I can help and help be a part of changing healthcare to make people well now, but long term.
So when you're going through this, do you have a certain routine, that you followed? If you're driving to the hospital, for example, are you got soft music on? Are you meditating? Hopefully you're not driving with your eyes closed. Or during that time when you get a break, are you doing something like what kind of a routine? I think from a mental health standpoint and also from a, physical standpoint, those that are successful, tend to have routines, right? Exercising becomes a habit. Stress relief almost becomes a habit as well, when it's predictable stress. If you had that routine, can you describe that to us? What was it?
Gosh, I feel like I've really expanded on some of those habits, and it's really eating, sleeping, exercise, and stress reduction. And I say eating, sleeping, and stress and exercise because, when we're stressed, we eat comfort foods, but when you flip-flop that and you're putting something really nourishing, like I've transformed through those emergency room years to juice. I'm a big juicer. The nutrients that we get from juicing is great. So instead of grabbing a Coke, which I never did, but coffee was always really common in the emergency room, like an unending cup of coffee. But drinking juice and more water, half your body weight in ounces of water daily. So, what you eat really greatly affected. Grabbing a candy bar? No, maybe grabbing a granola bar, when you didn't have time for a shift break or a meal. But driving to work, I fuel myself with something good for me, not a stimulant or excess caffeine. And I love my coffee, but there's a limit. Also sleep, make sure I was rested. If I didn't have a good night's sleep the night before I'm going to work and driving in my commute to work, which was like 45 minutes, I'd lay down before I, went to work. So that was the sleep portion. Exercise is funny for me because I've always believed in challenging my body. And I've done a lot of little mini triathlons. I've done half marathons. For my 50th birthday, I did a 120-mile bike ride for multiple sclerosis. And I just love exercise. I think it's very freeing. It's how I deal with stress, how I think more clearly. And my body just feels so good after. So that was that also. I'd make sure I got a run or something in before I left for work. And then I never closed my eyes driving, but the stress reduction would be usually classical music.
What was harder, the 125-mile bike ride or the marathon or the half marathon or all the other stuff that you've done?
That's an interesting question. It was never the events. What's really interesting is that whenever anybody wants to embark on challenging their body, whether it's a 5K race or whatever it is, it's really more about the training and investing that time and energy to do it. And because sometimes you're like, gosh, I really need to get a run in 3 times a week because my event's coming up, but I don't feel like it, or the weather's not good. And so it's really more about the training because the day of the event, you're so pumped up. You're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to check this off my box. That 120-mile bike ride for multiple sclerosis was, in all honesty, 65 miles one way with an overnight in these cabins in upstate Connecticut. And there was no TV. There was electricity, but it was just an overnight. And it was uphill going there, and it was downhill coming back. So it was a little bit easier on the downswing, but the purpose was great. It was, like I said, for multiple sclerosis. It was a fundraiser, and it was to celebrate my birthday too. So.
So I lived in Connecticut, so I'm familiar with the state. So where did you start, and where was your overnight?
Oh my gosh. So that was Hammonasset State Park is where we started, which is such a beautiful state park. And you rode along the coastline of the Long Island Sound, and then you crossed the Connecticut River at the Opera House, and you ended up going up pretty steady Devil's Hop Yard, it's called. And then those cabins were at the top of that. But the majority of the ride along the coastline was so beautiful because who doesn't like to, view water and the coast, especially while you're biking. But the thing about biking and cycling is you can trail off the person in front of you. And it's not that you don't have to pedal, but you could kind of trail off them.
Drafting. You draft stuff to somebody, yeah.
Drafting, yes.
Yeah, we take these bike trips on a regular basis and to different parts of the country, and it's nothing better, I think, sometimes than being on a bike, especially when there's no cars around, and you focus a little bit more on where you're riding to and what you're doing, and But it does help to be in a group because every once in a while, if you get a little tired, you can just get behind somebody.
Yeah, for people that haven't gotten on a bike in a long time, it brings you back to being a child. It is wonderful. It's freeing. It's fun.
So you're in Connecticut. You're commuting back and forth to New York, and then you eventually get to South Carolina. And where did you work when you were in South Carolina before you came to Optimal Bio?
Well, everybody has a COVID story. The 2 years right before I came on to Optimal Bio, those 2 years, I really invested myself. I wanted to contribute to what was happening. So I actually tried to work up in New York, and because they were trying to hire people from all over the country to go up and help in some of those areas, but that were really inundated with illness and the hospitals being overflooded. But locally, with people being ill, so many offices were closed that people were sick and needed treatments. And so I was commuting. I did some contracting work. I was commuting actually over to Myrtle Beach, Pawleys Island, Murrells Inlet area to help out in a cancer clinic for people that were getting integrative cancer treatments that still wanted to continue with their treatments. But, a lot of people were shut down. I also got to work in this really extraordinary practice, this anti-aging practice that did really great things for people that were sick with COVID to help their immune system. And that was just phenomenal too. So I kind of burned out after I really kind of spread myself thin. So I was taking some time off before I worked. A recruiter called me from wondering if I was interested in meeting with Tyler and Aaron, and that was a deal breaker. As soon as I met with them, I just thought, the timing's right. I'm rested. There's a new office starting in Charleston. This is perfect timing. This is great. I want to be a part of this and build it.
So looking back on your COVID experience, was it, that's the word I'm looking for here. I'm not going to dismiss it, of course, because I do think there were a lot of people that were sick, but was it, if you look back on it now, was it as, because now you know what you know, as opposed to back then, there was a lot more of an unknown. The thing that struck me with Optimal Bio during that time was, and looking back on it too, I felt like, our health leaders should have been espousing these as well, which was taking personal responsibility for your health, right? Eating healthy foods, exercising, taking vitamin D3 and zinc and C and, some of these other supplements that are known to, help with your immune protection. And the fact that they, went out and told everybody to stay inside for the most part and not go outside, not get sunlight, not walk, separate, from your loved ones. Obviously there's emotional stress with that, along with everything else. And, yes, we had to protect the vulnerable, but we certainly, there's a lot of healthy people, I think, that were, affected by that as well. And, so at the time, at least, we were open, and, through, the research that Dr. Brandon had done, hopefully for, a lot of us, just trying to become as healthy as possible to make sure your immunities were up. Hopefully then if you did get it, it was mild, and you moved on at that point in time. And that's what I kind of meant before when I was asking about that. I mean, from a, prior to that, it sounds like you were in touch with and on top of, fine tuning your body, right? You obviously talked about your routines before, and, being selective in what you eat and, supplements and things like that. But going through it at the time and now looking back at it now, I do think for some of us at least, we learned a lot, in terms of what we can do for ourselves going forward. So I don't know if you had that same experience or not.
There's some really extraordinary physicians that have done a lot of research, not just in our country, but worldwide, globally, on the efficacy of supplementation. You had mentioned some of the biggies, and that is, vitamin D, obviously, fish oil, even resveratrol, vitamin C, quercetin. Amazing results from, again, bolstering or making some of your levels very robust that, that turn on our immune system, that initiate, those factors, those antioxidants, and again, Treg cells, lymphocytes, that what we need to fight off like basic colds, basic viruses. Not to say that COVID was basic in any way, shape, or form, but when we, have robust levels and nutrient levels, whether it's from supplements or whether it's from a whole foods diet, and we have good, strong gut health, then, we can take on something that comes our way, a flu, a virus, RSV, or a combination. And unfortunately, we are hearing more and more people that are sick with like double viruses. So it's never too late, and you want to work with somebody qualified to make sure you are taking good quality supplementation, not just anything off the shelf, because not all supplements are created equal, and you want to know what dose you need specifically too. So, and lab levels can be checked for those nutrient levels to make sure they're optimal for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because my brother, he seems like he's, I don't know, struggling with some of these viruses, some of these colds every once in a while. And, I told him years ago, I said, hey, you got to, eat healthier, but also, take D3 and not D, but D3 and, some of the other supplements as well. And he's like, so I, recommended, since he's never been on it before, to start out at 10,000, although I'm not a doctor. And he went to the Mayo Clinic website and they recommended 1,000. And so I said, how's that working out for you? And, his levels, I guess he got tested the other day and he's somewhere around 40 or 42. And I said, well, the Mayo's going to want you at 1,000 because they want to see you at some point in time. It was a joke, but, he didn't find it too funny. Anyhow, when you're seeing a patient and you're going through their labs, and, one thing about Optimal Bio that I really like is that it's personalized medicine. Like all the providers recognize that every body is different. Every person is different. So how do you then figure out, how do you assess, what it is that, each individual, how do you customize that package for them and recommend, certain supplements or for them not to do supplements? How do you do that?
Great question. Yes, it's very much, whether you're in a primary care office, whether you're going to a specialty practice like this, it should be individualized. It's not cookie cutter. Not everybody needs vitamin C 1,000 milligrams. You look at the person, you assess them, and you really want a thorough intake. You want to know what they're eating, what they're not eating, how are they exercising, sleeping, what are their symptoms, what kind of symptomatology are they having that they're coming to you, because we know a lot of really basic vitamins can be so powerful for our immune system, but taking it a step further and kind of related, but on the other end of this is our soil is not mineral rich anymore. It's mineral depleted. And so even if you're a really healthy eater or call yourself one, eating a lot of fruits and vegetables or vegetables from the ground, from soil, the thing is a lot of us need extra minerals and extra vitamins. So, to answer your question, it's very multifactorial and it's very individually based on what that person needs. Levels can be tested. But even just some of the basics, we know, for example, zinc supplementation, for example, can be 30 to 50 milligrams a day for people. Selenium, 200. Iodine, at least 12.5. The thing is we know some of the basic and some ranges as practitioners that are very effective for people, but maybe they need to be at the higher end of the range. When we look at lab values of certain nutrients, and for example, vitamin D, Dr. Michael Pollack has been around for a long time and has done incredible research at vitamindcouncil.org. And that's just one site. Anybody that looks up vitamin D now will see It's not a vitamin, first of all. It's a steroidogenic hormone. We take it very serious here at Optimal Bio because, gosh, what doesn't it affect? It affects your bones. It affects your brain health. It affects your heart health. It affects your cholesterol. It affects your immune system. It goes on, and it keeps getting studied. But the interesting thing is the lab range is 30 to 100, for example, on some mainstream lab companies like LabCorp, for example, 30 to 100. But some of these extraordinary doctors and practices are saying, you know what, 60 to 100, not over the range, but the upper end has amazing health benefits. Dr. Brannon takes it a step further, 80 to 100. There's definitely a plethora of studies, and the literature clearly demonstrates it's anti-carcinogenic, anti-cancer. Now, sign me up, because anything that we can do to prevent cancer is so important. Whether you're a cancer survivor, whether you have a strong history, strong genetic family history. So again, when we're looking at these levels, we know what some optimal doses are. Like you said, your brother kind of maybe was not encouraged to take more than 1,000 IUs. And just for the record, this is the one vitamin that's not milligrams. It's international units, IUs. So, 5,000 is not unusual. 10,000 is not unusual, but it depends on what your needs are and if someone's monitoring your levels. So very customized. And that's what we do at Optimal Bio. We're very individual medicine. It's not cookie cutter.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about yourself. Your diet. What do you thrive on? What's a typical day look like for you?
Oh goodness. So I always start my day with juice, and I'm sure a lot of my coworkers are laughing as they listen to this because they'll see me with my celery juice, shaking it in the morning. So I do a juice to go if I'm not at home, but otherwise I do it in my blender, my Vitamix. So I always start my day after fasting all night with a juice. And I do believe in intermittent fasting. I think it's very, very critical for your body. It goes back to how our grandparents were raised and lived. Our grandparents' generation lived the healthiest and the longest, and it's amazing. And I can remember going over to my grandparents when I was a little girl, and my grandparents would be sitting in their easy chairs, at 7 p.m. at night, and they had this one scoop of ice cream in their dish, and they were watching something funny or a game show, and they ate that little ice cream, and that's all they had, and they had nothing else till 7 a.m., 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., nothing. And they were hungry in the morning, and they actually got up and worked in the yard and in the fields and stuff. But, the thing is when we intermittent fast, it gives our body a time to reset, our liver to reset, and everything to just, be optimized for the next day. Your pancreas, liver, gallbladder, they all need to reset and be optimal. But, so what is it that you put in your body first thing in the morning? For me, it's juice, and I think that's crucial, or really good filtered water. So that's how I start my day. Then through the day, I believe that it's really important to have 6 to 9 servings of vegetables. And that can be anything. Hopefully it's a lot of greens, but 6 to 9 might seem like a lot, but sometimes a serving is a handful or a half a cup or whole cup. But when you juice, here's a little tip. When you juice, you're actually getting like 5 or 6 servings and you're just drinking it down. So it's really easy. And because it's juiced and your stomach's empty, it's very easily absorbed. You get those nutrients so simply. So it's fantastic for you. So you can check off like almost 4 or 5 vegetables just by drinking my juice. And then I have a salad during the day. I've had years where I've been vegetarian and almost vegan, but it takes a toll on your body, and you really need to replenish those amino acids you can only get from animal products. So I do incorporate meat, but I think the key is the quality, where it's coming from, and the quantity. And a lot of people don't realize the quality and quantity of your meat. You want pasture fed, happy if you can know the farm that meat came from, or that it was raised well and antibiotic free, et cetera, but pasture fed. It was out on the range and eating grass. But the serving is supposed to be the palm of your hand. It's not these double, triple burgers and huge steaks that look really impressive on the plate. It's actually, something smaller. So, and then you're supposed to have all those vegetables with it. So that's basically my routine. I do love really good chocolate. So that's kind of my go-to when I have a sweet tooth. I have certain brands that I really like. So, but I haven't always been that way. I've grown into this health habit, and I feel amazing because I really feel like one of my mantras is, you are what you eat, but even you are what you don't eat enough of. So, as a functional medicine board certified practitioner, food is medicine. And maybe a lot of people think that's that cliche is kind of old, but it really is. And if we ate more like our grandparents and how they ate, I think a lot of us would be healthier. And, we talked about COVID, we talked about supplementation. It shouldn't be about taking all these supplements. And I'm the first one to raise my hand. I take a plethora of vitamins that I know I need and can benefit from, and I feel great taking them. But I should get my nutrients from whole foods and good grass-fed meats. So
besides chocolate, if you are going to indulge, what are some of your other, just so we know that you're human, what are some of the other things that you like?
Well, I do like good custard. So, and hopefully it's, locally sourced cream and milk. So there's a really good one down the street from this Cary office. But again, it's serving sizes, portions, and how often you do it. And the thing is I feel like, in all these years of practicing, that we've just gotten off track. We celebrate every day. We have caffeine, sugar, and alcohol too often instead of just on the weekends. So it's not a treat anymore. It's like we're recreationally eating every day. So again, those good habits you have every day really turn you into having a robust immune system, or maybe sluggish and your sugar levels are too high, your hemoglobin A1C, your glycemic markers, even your fasting insulin levels are too high.
In terms of your exercise now, what do you do?
I love yoga. I love power yoga. I love hot yoga. But I do miss doing my mini triathlons because I love to run, bike, and swim. Love it. I have an old labral tear of my hip, so I'm not running anymore, but I substitute other things in. So I'm still biking, swimming, and a lot of yoga. And then I'm throwing this out there, but I am a pickleball fanatic. I love it. It is fantastic for the exercise, for the social part, and just it's fun. I mean, I laugh as much as I play hard. I like to win, but not at the cost of being on a high intense team or anything like that. So. But again, just, exercise in moderation. And the thing is when we have an injury, sometimes we think that we're set back, but I feel like there's a bigger message there. It's time to shift your body into something else. You don't have to keep up such a rigorous, high intense pace. And so I never thought I'd stop doing triathlons. I was always invigorated when they write your number on the back of your calf and you're out there running and I'm in my 50s running and I see the lady in front of me has 76 on her calf. And I'm like, that's going to be me. I'm going to be running till I'm at least in my 70s. Well, I had this tear and I'm like, well, I guess I won't, but I'll do other things instead. So
what do you like to read? I
love functional medicine. I love to read some of the other functional medicine providers' books. I like Dr. Mark Hyman's books. Dr. Jeffrey Bland is amazing too. He writes The Disease Delusion. Dr. Kara Fitzgerald also has an anti-aging book that deals with methylation, which is fantastic. So I feel like I'm always just kind of empowering my brain with, more education on that which I love, which is, again, It's, for me, this triad of balancing your hormones, about good gut health, and about inflammation and keeping that level low.
Besides the medical books that you read, do you any murder mysteries or, what else do we need to know about you?
Oh gosh, I love to travel. I do love to dance. And that's that whole phrase where, dance like nobody's watching. So, when I'm out on the dance floor, I like to just kind of cut loose, but I do love to travel. And, as far as reading books, again, it really supports who I am. I have my favorite meditation and positive affirmation authors that just really inspire me every day. But I like to also, I get out and I volunteer. There is such an empowering sense of self that you can't buy or earn when you volunteer, because it gets you out of your head. It gets you away from, what you do, which is a part of who you are, but not completely. But helping other people that are less fortunate and don't have the opportunities as you, it's really powerful. So when I try and do something new every year, I have my favorites, but for example, this year at Christmas, I work with the Salvation Army with Angel Tree, and that was really fascinating because, this year was really meaningful at Christmas. To volunteer there, we packaged so many bags for 4 kids. Their parents had to apply for gifts that they couldn't afford for their kids under the tree, basic things. And like I would put a book and a jacket in with maybe a scooter. So you had all these donations, and then you had to take these wish lists and bag them specifically with these names. So I love to volunteer. I think that's really important. I also work with our local East Cooper Meals on Wheels, and they supply home-cooked meals for people stuck at home. But they take it a lot farther than that. They make sure that their batteries, their remote controls have batteries in it, that their thermostat's working, that they have blankets, that their light bulbs are working, so they don't just go in and drop off food and that's it. Florence Crittenden Home is actually around the country in different states, and displaced teens for whatever reason, displaced from their homes and are pregnant and decide to have the baby, can go there, and they can actually continue to go to school. I'll go there and help them, teach them some life skills, just sit with them, talk, laugh. We might do our nails, but the people care about them. Volunteering is very exciting too. When I'm trying to get off the grid from kind of all my day-to-day habits, whether it's meditation, exercise, and volunteering, like I said, I love to travel. I love to see the world.
So if one wanted to volunteer at all these places, is there a specific site that you go to, or is it just through the community, through church, through whatever, that you're getting connected to some of these places?
Yeah. You just would want to hone in on what your community needs or what you're interested in. I do volunteer at church also, but that's a good starting point, or just going to your town hall and just seeing, what kind of activities or collections they do, and it kind of will steer you in the right direction. I'm involved with our Newcomers Club in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, the East Cooper Newcomers Club, and we do a lot of philanthropy. For example, we're hosting a fashion show, and all the proceeds go to Displaced Boys Home. And also the MUSC, the Medical University of South Carolina's Art and Healing Program. So, just philanthropy and, helping other people, especially if you're local. You don't have to go drive far away. There's always food collections. There's always work at church, usually with some kind of shelter or feeding the homeless. And that's a great way to start. But I think you're more empowered to continue if it's something that you're really interested in. And it's not work. You look forward to going. You look forward to making a difference, because you're setting your life and all of you aside to help somebody else.
So I want to go back to the juice, because I've been thinking about this for a little while. I think a lot of people don't dream about, nor do they consume pure vegetable juice because, quite frankly, it doesn't really taste good, right? So are there any little tricks of the trade that you implement to make it taste a little better, like throwing a little lemon juice in there or some sweetener or some fruit? Like, how do you, I'm sure you didn't start by saying, man, I really love this straight kale juice or, celery juice. So for our audience, at least, if you wanted them to take baby steps, what are some of the things they might be able to do to get those vegetables inside those bodies, but make it more tolerable?
Juicing has come a long way. And juicing, really, the essence of juicing is pulverizing vegetables and pulling out that fiber so you're only drinking the juice. Sometimes I'll drink the fiber too because fiber is very, very good for our body. But true juice is just the liquid and extracting the fiber. So depending on what you're doing, kale, spinach, whatever, yes, it could be tasting very, very alkaline. And that's what it's doing to your pH of your body. Your body's becoming more alkaline versus acidic from dairy and meats and et cetera. We become very alkaline from plants and juicing. So, there's a lot of tricks. You can buy juices already made that are organic and cold pressed if you're cheating. And that's what I do when I'm busy and out the door or first thing in the morning until I get back, and then I'll make a fresh one at home. But there's brands that you can buy that are straight celery juice with a little bit of lemon. And certainly there's also powdered mixes that can be amazing for you. Amazing green grass organic powder is amazing. It certainly is better than doing nothing versus, and the quality of whatever mix you're buying versus doing nothing is great. So you might say, you know what, I want to try and start doing more greens like spinach and kale, but I'm not sure I could choke it down. So sure, you can add some kind of sweetener. You could add like green apple. Green apples and berries are lowest sugar fruits versus bananas and grapes. Bananas and grapes are on one spectrum. You got your berries and your green apples, not red, on the other end. So a lot of people that have juicing recipes will have, for example, 2 or 3 greens, a sweetener, part of a green apple or a green apple, and then they usually add something good for liver detoxification, like a lime or a lemon. And that's kind of a classic juice mix if you're doing it yourself. 2 or 3 greens, a lemon or a lime, and green apple, because you're not overpowering it with too much sugar because, fructose, sugar fruit, really offsets kind of the benefits of what you're trying to accomplish. So you have juicing, but you can also I'm a big smoothie person, so I forgot to mention that. Like for breakfast, I almost always have a smoothie way after my juice. And again, pre-digested foods, kind of like when we were babies and we had applesauce and just liquids and stuff. Pre-digested foods absorb in your gut so quickly and easy, and you get those nutrients. Your body doesn't have to work so hard to break food down because it's liquid. So smoothies are a great way to start your day. And so people will usually throw some kale in their protein powder. It might be chocolate, but the quality of your protein powder with some berries or some kale, some green, and that can be so powerful too. So some people will, because we become addicted to sugar or sweet or the taste of things, will put more fruit in some of these smoothies or juices and still call them that. But really the bottom line, the best quality, if you really want to juice, make your gut a little bit more alkaline, you want to get the greens in and maybe just sweeten it with green apple.
Great tips. I like it. So, as always, when we end our podcast, we ask for the guests to give us 5 takeaways. Anything that you've picked up in life, anything that you feel like you want to share, that'll hopefully provide some inspiration or some knowledge, to our listeners. So hopefully you're ready for this question.
Okay. 5. Let's see. Food is medicine. So you are what you eat, but you also are what you don't eat enough of. and we all know that. Juice if you can. That's one way to get some really great nutrients in, intermittent fasting. Get outside, not just for exercise. We're programmed to be outside as humans. We're programmed to get our hands in the dirt and our feet in the soil or the sand. And it's so important because it gets us out of our head. It gets us away from electronics. It makes us happy. We need to be in Mother Nature. That's why it's there. So really powerful. The other thing about getting outside is we are exposed to so many positive ions, computers, phones, microwaves, our digital TVs. We get all this positive ion exposure. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. But when you're in a rainstorm, sitting on your porch and it's raining, you go to the beach, you go to a butterfly garden, you have this overwhelming sense of you feel really good. And that's the negative ions that are counterbalancing all these positive ions we get from our regular daily American lives. So getting outside is really powerful. Number 3, get your hormones balanced. That's a biggie. It is such a beautiful world that we live in, our country, our world. But the truth is, it's a very toxic world. And our bodies have the ability to detoxify itself, but you're struggling if your hormones are low. And, that's really important. There's LED lights that we're under that we don't feel good. There's pesticides, insecticides, fungicides in our foods. There's dioxins and BPA from plastics that we drink out of. We can clear those toxins, but if you're struggling and your hormones are low, call us, get an evaluation. Create your wellness from the inside out, again, with your hormones, with your gut health, with what you eat. It's super important.
Well, thank you for your time today. This is great. Glad we get a chance to get to know you more, and I'm looking forward to continue working with you. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck down in Mount Pleasant. And if you're in the area, come visit Optimal Bio down there and say hello to Deborah. Thank you.
Please do. Thank you all so very much. Bye.
This has been a production of Optimal Bio. Optimal Bio is CEO Tyler Brannon, podcast host and partner Jim Baker, medical director Greg Brannon, production assistance by Core Media, Beth Grabencourt, administrator, Kevin Duthu, executive producer. The podcast can be found on our website, optimalbio.com, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Our theme song is Sunwave by Paradiso, provided by Epidemic Sound.